Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. Uh, this video is going to be about self-priming elements. Um, so we're going to be talking about corrosive, viral, magnetic, and heat to some extent. Um, I've seen some questions in the past, and was watching some of the YouTube videos about like the comparison of viral to corrosive. Um, and the math appears pretty accurate, but the fact is that the interaction between them isn't really explained like the balancing act. So we're going to talk about it a bit here. Um, there were a couple creators where they were comparing like viral damage versus corrosive, and though their presentation was pretty accurate, the interaction and how you would use it is not really present. Um, so let's just talk about the straight up math, the how you would basically mod for them. Corrosive is going to be used predominantly versus the Grenier and Deimos infested, obviously mutated strain. Um, there's a couple of Corpus units, rare ones that corrosive will help you out because they have armor, and the same for the infested. Like naturally on like a tile set, not just the ones on Deimos. Corrosive carries a bonus damage against armored enemies. The status effect of corrosive reduces the armor. Corrosive also has a percent bypass where it ignores the current armor value. So one of the things that hasn't been explained really well is that corrosive effectively triple dips, where viral will provide you with bonus damage against most health types, and if it doesn't, its status effect will damn sure give you bonus damage since it's literally extra damage to health, and since most things have health, it's pretty universal. Um, Magnetic is bonus damage to shields plus 75. And it increases any other damage that you do to shields. So it would give you bonus damage against like a normal shield, but wouldn't help you on the toxin proc that bypasses. But at the same time, against like proto shields where you can't bypass them, it would then boost any other damage that you do, including other dots. So magnetic would boost like a toxin dot, slash dot, a heat dot, gas, etc. Anything doing damage to proto shields would be boosted by magnetic, which is kind of weird to say that a slash dot can be boosted by magnetic. But if you're doing a like an arbitration where that's the bonus, you gotta kind of know that you would mod magnetic and with a dot, and even hunter munitions could help you out. Where toxin isn't going to necessarily help you out as much as you think it is. You're going to need the raw damage, and you're going to need magnetic to get that boost. But like, even with toxin dots, heat dots, slash, gas, and any other raw damage that you can do, magnetic will boost that damage against proto shields. So it's the same thing where corrosive is against armor, magnetic is against shield, viral is gives you a damage boost against health types. So those are the big three. The heat dot sort of self primes, not necessarily like the other ones, gives you a slight bonus to flesh. Cloned flesh. It's like plus 25%, but that's not really the big interaction. But it's burn, panic. I forget what it's called now. The one where it makes them panic also causes the enemy to lose 50% armor, which is pretty good because that allows heat and any other damage, since we're talking about self-priming, to also do more damage. So heat and viral can interact positively with each other in terms of the reduced armor and the bonus damage to health. Corrosive and heat interact very well with each other. If you're viral priming or taking like a panzer, because between corrosive and heat, you can reduce the enemy's armor by 90%. And if you're running a frame on like a 99% strip, you can lower armor values significantly, like 99.9% in like 2 seconds. So if you're trying to do a corrosive build, can't recommend that enough. Do your 99% strips and, really get rid of that armor and then prime with viral. So what's the point of this video? It's to talk about the interaction between the two, predominantly corrosive and viral, because the general sentiment, and for the guy that asked, last week, that just wants to use his Ignis Wraith that he just got, listen, bro, just keep using your viral hunter munitions build on the star chart. You're fine. This is for scaling later, when you get to like sort of steel path. And then say up to like level 1000 to like 4000. Eventually you do want to swap back to viral and just get used to full stripping. But the fact is that for a large portion of the game, if you were to have a viral weapon and prime with corrosive, you would do less damage against the Grineer than if you had a corrosive weapon and you primed with viral, because of the interaction with the armor modifiers. Because when you look at, and I'm going to pull up the damage calculation for damage against armored enemies. So here's the issue. Why you want to do corrosive on your weapons. Eventually, again, dude, using your Ignis Wraith, rock out with viral slash, you're doing great, dude. But for anybody who wants to have like a more comfortable steel path experience, I can't recommend either getting used to priming with a secondary, getting viral on stuff, and having your primary weapon do corrosive. Also, sorry for the flashbang. And not using viral on the weapon itself, unless you are looking for a truly general pick up and go build, and you just want to keep viral corrosive, then hey, do what you gotta do. But if you want your weapon to do more damage against the Grineer, which is a lot of what we're doing right now, and damage against enemies with armor, this is kind of what you have to do to get that extra damage out. You don't even necessarily need like the 99% strip, but God, it helps. So here's the damage modifier calculation for enemies with armor. I'm going to briefly discuss what this is and why corrosive beats out going viral. At lower armor values, right? So the enemy's current armor is armor rating, right? It's armor after reduction, so like it even says corrosive projection, corrosive terrify. So basically what I said, your 80% armor reductions, your heat armor strips, your ability, your 99% strips would affect this. And once everything gets reduced, that's where the new number goes in AR. As this approaches 0, this part of the equation cancels out, and it becomes, if an enemy has 1 armor, like you have stripped every single armor off the enemy, this equation turns into 300 over 300. And if the enemy armor is at 1, it's like you're dealing like 99 point, I got a calculator. I think it's like 99.66777 or something like that. The 300 divided by 301, 300 divided by 301. Yeah, okay. So for every 100 damage you're doing 99 damage. 99 and like 0.6 damage. 99.7. This will probably, for Warframe, this will probably get rounded to 99.7. Once you get your multipliers on, you'll see it. But if you're doing native 100 damage, it'll show as 100. But once you get multipliers on, these extra decimals might start showing. So basically unarmored damage. So this can effectively be canceled out within a rounding error. But if you maintain the armor, since all of this just cancels out because AR goes to 1, even though you have armor modifiers, like this is the plus 75 on corrosive, it gets reduced down to practically 1, and then you're just left with the armor modifier of plus 75, which is 1 plus 75%, and then you quantize it out and figure out what the average is, right? To get your average your average modifier against the armor. So you'll run the calculation twice, see what your average health modifier is, see what your average armor modifier is, and if shields are relevant, that gets its own equation over here. And then you get like an average shield modifier, and then when you're dealing damage to shields, you use that. When you deal damage to health, you use the damage modifier, right? Against armor. Because this is a multiplier and you can prime with viral, you will gain the benefit of both modifiers interacting with each other and multiplying your damage. If you only use viral, you throw the rest of this equation out and you're just left with the one multiplier. It's just another multiplier attached if you use armor. Now, the only time there would really be any nuance around this is when there's the issue of, say, like primed elementals. Generally, the general gist is because the quantization gets shoved so hard because of the additional primed elementals, you actually gain bonus damage because of the quantization rounding. When you like say, it's like that case on the Ignis. If you do like a 90, like 290 mods for viral, you'll do like X amount of damage. But if you mod for the primed cryo, and that's the only damage difference, your damage goes up by like 26, or your raw damage goes up by like 26%, but your real damage goes up by like 31% or something like that. It's because the quantization is rounding, and you're actually gaining bonus damage. You gain like an extra, like, was it like 5-6% effective damage? So you want as much of this multiplier as possible in your favor, unless you are doing a level cap. Then you want to be able to hammer down on this one simple multiplier. But this does also, because of the way the rounding works on this, there is a small nuance where when you're using, say, like the perfect ideal weapon, like that's why I was testing with the Synapse the other day on that Hildren video, is there is a very small nuance where if you get your armor and or your corrosive and your viral weightings on the same weapon, you can actually do more damage. Because these, instead of having just a simple plus 75 over here on like a pure viral weapon, you can actually get like a 16% increase on the very rare occasion where you can have both of them together, even though the multipliers are cut in half. But because you turn around and square them, there is actually a small bit of damage you can get here, and I think it's like 16%. Very rare circumstance, because it requires corrosive or viral to be on the weapon already. But this is the interaction that's important, this multiplier right here, and the explanation has never been super good. So the reason why you mod for corrosive, talking about the equation and its effects. So let's talk about what's actually happening. Say an enemy has, nice round number, 10,000 armor. This was the example I used before. I'm just going to reiterate it. And you use corrosive, and you remove 80% of the armor with 10 stacks of corrosive. That's the effect, right? It removes the armor, like it reduces. 10,000 goes to 2,000. And say you have heat on the weapon as well. Well, the remaining armor value gets reduced another 50%. Well, we have 2,000 armor, so then it gets reduced down to 1,000. Now, if you are going for a raw damage build, so say like you're using a Tenet weapon that has heat, you would mod for like a heavy corrosive. If you want to do raw damage, like I do this on my Kuva Comb, I have the element of heat. I think it's a low weighting. To be honest, I think it might be 60% actually. But you would use like a low weighting for raw damage, and then you would heavily mod into corrosive to get a monster bypass and weight your weapon as much as possible into corrosive. So when you're adding up and you quantize everything and you divide your total damage by 16 and then figure out the adjustment, you try to get as many quanta out of the 16 to be corrosive. And it will give you a big, big damage boost against the armor. So this is the interaction. And if the enemy has armor, you don't get any of this with viral. You have to use 100% armor strip to get the big pop with viral, especially if you're trying to one-shot. If you're trying to do a one-shot and you don't want to bullet hose something, corrosive wins by default. It's not even close. Now, if you're talking about bullet hosing stuff, there's that little bit of nuance. Like, you then have to compare status to status, because viral isn't going to help you at all against corrosive, or against armor. What it is going to do is, once armor gets done destroying your damage, it's then going to increase it by 325%. So it's like a participation trophy. If the enemy has 99.9% damage reduction because of the armor, viral would be your participation trophy, and that's why you go slash, so you don't care about the armor. But if you're trying to do raw damage also on top of dot damage, you would actually go hunter munitions, corrosive, and then prime with viral. Like, even if it's like a lazy man's method and just using the Panzer, you would do way more damage, because then viral status, the plus 325, would amp the final number that gets done by corrosive, where it's put work in on destroying the armor. Then that number would get amped, where viral would just have to deal with what's left over. And even then, on top of all of that, because we're in the age of galvanized mods, okay, yeah, the comb's 60%. Because we're in the age of galvanized savvy, there is also the additional benefit. Yeah, see, I did the heavy weighting on corrosive. I didn't do anything on heat. I just used it for base damage. By using a different element and not doing viral slash on everything, you do gain an additional savvy stack, which does help your base damage again. Whether it's additive or multiplicative, it depends on the weapon you're using, right? But just by having the additional, even though it's 1... Listen, it's free real estate. So when you get into Steel Path, you want to be able to get viral onto the enemy in another way, so you can deal with the additional corrosive. Unless you just want to, viral hunter munitions your way through Steel Path, or use like a slash-based weapon already, and continue to do the viral slash thing. It's effective. But eventually, once the health values start to climb, you're going to start needing those faction mods. You might not be desperate for it, but you might need some of those faction mods on a viral hunter munition build. Especially since we have the other thing that's going to be an issue is running corrosive and being able to prime with viral. Generally, it's not the case for primaries, but say like a shotgun, you have the option of going corrosive or viral, because you have the two elements. Where on pistols you have heat, on melees you have the prime toxin mod. You need a ton of raw damage to easily deal with overguard. So even though there's no bonus damage against overguard, being able to quickly burn down enemies that are eczemus and have overguard requires you getting as many stacks as possible. So say like this Kuva comb has impact puncture slash heat corrosive on it. So hunter munitions isn't going to help Gavi stacks because I have slash on here already, and it's a decent weighting. But because I've so heavily rolled into corrosive, I'm going to have to bullet hose the other ones. But if I then prime with viral, it boosts savvy a bunch, and I'll be able to get more damage compared to somebody running viral slash. Because if you run pure viral slash, you're going to go up to an Eximus unit, and you're going to be used to hitting whatever your slash amount is, and then you're going to hit an Eximus, and you're not going to have the bonus damage to health. They're going to laugh at you. That's why some people think like doing like killing Eximus is like really difficult. It's because you're used to the viral boosted damage, and that's just not the case against them. So like the Thrax, for example, they have like a tiny bit of armor, but man, they got a health pool, and that's what the Overguard scales off of, is health pool. So you gotta have the raw damage to do that. Like this Kuvacomb against Thrax. If I was doing a Cascade, I would actually take off the Prime mod, because the Thrax don't have a faction, and at the higher levels, when you're getting toward cap, the Thrax are the things that kill you. It's not even close. The Thrax are the things that kill you. They jump on you. If you're not paying attention, say you drop a shield gate, you can easily get one shot just by their jump, because isn't it like a forced magnetic or something like that? There's some force proc on it. So you need the raw damage. You can't rely on viral slash or even viral heat, because if Overguard is up, there's nothing to strip for the heat, and the viral doesn't get boosted, or the heat doesn't get boosted by the viral because there's no bonus damage, and the slash doesn't get boosted by the viral because there's no bonus damage against the health pool type. Now, obviously, once the Overguard drops, if you have enough slash ticks and heat dots and damage put into it, once the Overguard drops, they should basically explode. But the fact is that if you're trying to get rid of the Overguard as fast as possible, you need the damage variety, so you can boost savvy as much as possible. So the idea of, viral winning, if you will, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So the general tendency that I'm going to promote personally, in terms of like best practice, and I'll do a little nuance for the people doing level caps, but to be honest, if you're doing level caps, you probably aren't watching this video. Let's be honest. Viral slash or viral heat slash for like star chart is perfectly fine, because everything hasn't had the chance to scale yet. On Steel Path, you should seriously give some consideration at the start, though I wouldn't say it's required, for getting off of viral slash and going to corrosive slash against Grenier, or corrosive heat slash, so you can get your raw damage up, especially if you have like a Panzer. My general rule is once I got the Panzer, or somebody in my clan gets a Panzer, I'm immediately like, oh cool, you got a Panzer, hey, swap over to corrosive against the Grenier, and let the Panzer do the job of spreading spores. Because once you know how to play and spread spores, it is super easy to keep those things alive. Right? Like, just watch the AoE weapons, don't nuke everything, but even then, like, it spits spores like every 4 seconds or something like that. And then they spread in like a huge radius. Like, it's really easy to keep them alive, especially in like a survival. But the stat diversity still counts. The galvanized savvy damage boost still counts against Overguard. But by the time you get to the end of Steel Path, say doing the conjunction survival, you should have swapped over against the Grenier to like a corrosive slash build and figured out how to get viral on there another way. Because the enemy health pool is climbing so much with the Grenier. Obviously, that's not the case with conjunction survival, since that's corrupted, which you would go slash toxin against. But against the Grenier at those higher levels, and then beyond that, because we now have a level 200 Steel Path node, right? Like, the levels are starting to clearly go up. You need the damage variety. If you have the most perfectly balanced viral slash build, like literally, it's like 2/3 slash and like 1/3 viral, and you don't have impact, don't have puncture. My garbage IPS and stat distribution is going to massively outdo you, just because galvanized savvy gets increased so much. So the only thing that matters against Overguard is modded damage, base damage, faction damage. Obviously doesn't count for the Thraxes, but faction damage, crit tiers, galvanized savvy, direct damage stacks, and your not your Exilist, your Steel Path Arcane. Then that's that's base damage, right? So having like a status effect damage boost, it's not going to help you. So if you get used to it, is an extremely effective combination. Do not get me wrong. Viral slash and heat is an incredibly effective combination. But the fact is the game is finally putting stuff in where you need to start learning the nuance. Now that being said, this is almost a 30-minute video, so I'm going to leave a little bit for anybody who does level cap or is at least interested. You are basically going to, instead of doing this whole hybrid thing, you are going to move every single status onto your primer and mod raw damage wise onto your damage dealing weapon the one status you need that gives you the highest weakness bonus. And if you do dots, make sure to mod for faction, especially for those level cappers. But to be honest, you probably know that. So that's the main thing, is just make sure to don't be doing like hybrid builds or something like that. Get your damage from a primer and go all the way in. Like this would be pure viral. So it'd swap out like that if I wanted to do like a pure viral build, and I would probably throw like fire right here to get the most that you can out of that raw damage increase, because you're gonna need the damage unless you're running like some ability buffing thing, right? Unless you're getting a damage multiplier from abilities, or you're running some sort of interaction, right? But you probably already know that. But yeah, anybody who's interested in it, just go pure damage. If you have another place that you're getting damage from, like say an interaction with abilities, obviously increase that instead, right? Would say like mag and breach surge, right? With as much damage as that is, strip armor and trigger it as hard as possible, right? But that depends on how you're dealing damage, and I guess that would be a topic for another video. But yeah, viral versus corrosive, they self prime 10 stacks of viral on a stripped enemy, and you hit them with a viral weapon, will do more damage than a weapon that's made it with corrosive. Hitting an enemy that's stripped that has 10 stacks of corrosive, both will receive the bonuses, but only viral gets the additional 75%. An enemy with 1 armor on an evenly distributed corrosive viral build has the potential, you might need a Riven for it, for an additional favorable 75%, or not 75, 16%. But that's extremely rare, so that's like super nuanced stuff, right? But you cannot strip, otherwise you're kind of boned. You can't full strip. You have to nail like the 5 strip, like, or the 99.995% strip for level cap, right? So that's the nuance. Star chart viral slash is a-okay because everything's weak. Once you get to Steel Path, really give some weight to swapping over to corrosive, especially on primaries, corrosive 100 munitions. If it's a bullet hose, like it's really got some fire rate, don't even bother doing 60/60s, honestly. If you're like single stat corrosive, if you're bullet hosing and the weapon's weighted corrosive high enough, you're going to get it, especially with multi-shot. But if you're starting to worry about dots, like you're not doing like a 100 munitions build, then worry about your weightings. But corrosive, heavy weighting in corrosive with viral priming generally beats a pure viral setup, even though a pure viral setup can do it. So anyway, that's the nuance. A corrosive weapon that's viral or that's hits an enemy that's primed with viral will out damage an enemy that is primed with corrosive and you hit with a viral weapon. And even then, you also have the option of priming the enemy with corrosive and then hitting them with corrosive to speed up your stacks. Or if you have like a Tonkor or something where you're only getting like 1 or 2 shots and you want to one bang the enemy, you can prime with corrosive. Like I use the compressor sometimes with the Tonkor to get the viral and the corrosive stacks. So it is what it is. Anyway, not as bad as last video. Pretty informative. That's just the general dynamic. The whole viral beats corrosive thing is kind of silly anyway, but there you go. Take it easy, guys. Have a blessed day.